Aye.
Great. And now I would like to move us on to our discussion of housing. And Ms. Renero going to be presenting? No? Maybe?
Mr. Olson.
Ms. Turtleson.
Just give me one moment here to pull up my presentation, please. All right, so you get to listen to me talk again, but this is really exciting stuff. And it's also kind of a joint presentation on a number of housing-related programs that the city is working on. I'll be covering the first portion, which is an overview of the permit-ready plan sets that the planning department has been working on. That will lead into a discussion about the merging developer training, which I believe Ryan Kilpatrick will be presenting, and those two items are related. And then Economic Development Department will provide a general overview of some tools related to housing as well. So specific to the permit-ready plan set, wanted to introduce this to you as we have soft launched the program in terms of having available plan sets ready, which are construction-ready plans. There is a connection to the community master plan. I'll walk through what that process would be like, what an example could look like, and what are some of our goals, and then some future engagement that we'll be doing to make sure the community is aware that these plans exist. Back in 2022, the Michigan Municipal League and the Michigan Economic Development Corporation partnered, and they created what's called a neighborhood pattern workbook. There are permit-ready plan sets that are associated with this, but largely it was trying to help communities and come alongside them to encourage diversification of housing types in the city, or in the state, I should say. We took this concept and made it specific to the city of Grand Rapids. And so we were able to fortunately partner with the MADC to create plan sets for two-family homes, fourplexes, as well as single family. But this was sort of the basis for how this program was launched. Of course, our goal is to lower the barrier for infill housing. We have single, two-family, multi-family housing styles that are permit-ready, meaning if you have a vacant lot that you're able to acquire or that you currently own, as long as the house actually fits on that lot in terms of setbacks and green space and such, you could move straight into construction. So no longer would you have to hire the design professional to design that plan, and you would have the knowledge that if you were to acquire the plan set, which are free of charge, knowledge that those have already gone through an extensive code review. Of course, all the work we do in the planning department, we work really hard to make sure it aligns with our plans. Through our community master plan, we heard how important it was to make sure that infill development was easy to understand and navigate through the process. As such, we've created a website that walks everyone through this permit-ready plan program. We wanted to make sure we support small-scale developers in the city and provide adequate training. So part of this program is doing just that, working with the Urban League, Ryan Kilpatrick's team, on making sure that emerging developers in the city have some additional support as they work through infill development process. And then, of course, as we've talked about earlier, diversifying our housing typologies in the city remains a goal, and these housing types both fit within the neighborhood character, but also provide easy access to different housing typologies. So from a process overview, you'd want to visit the webpage, and of course it's going to look or suggest that you have a lot in mind to understand where this housing could go. You would submit an application, you'd apply for a building permit, and then you could begin construction. These are all of the housing types that have been created as part of this process. Obviously, this is a start and could be expanded as we move forward and determine what success looks like. So we have 3 housing options for single family. So these are the architectural elevations, and of course part of this, part of the plan set does include floor plans, construction types, materials, cost estimates, etc. So we have 3 single family, 3 duplex options, and 2 fourplex options. When you get into the document, you'd see, as I mentioned, an example of what the floor plans could look like with different variations or alternatives embedded. And you can see on the left-hand side of the screen providing a little bit more description about, in this case, the Herman floor plan. You can see that the the plan set includes the material lists that would be necessary, and then there is an option for all of these plans to have a sustainability component. So whether that is electrification of the home, or if you choose to add solar panels, all of that information was considered in the development of these plan sets. In terms of our goals and outcomes, really supporting infill development of residential structures in the city, trying to reduce barriers, especially for emerging developers. This does reduce timelines. It would reduce construction costs. We are encouraging emerging developers to participate through the partnership, as I mentioned, with the Urban League, making sure that we're part of that education to support emerging developers, or just, I use the term developer broadly, could be anybody who wishes to construct a home, and promoting small-scale housing. And then there's also, of course, a natural alignment with the land bank work that's also, or land bank conversations that are also taking place. So as I've mentioned, the website is soft launch. The plans are available. The applications are ready. But we want to do some additional engagement to help community be aware that these exist. There will be a press release that's done jointly with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. We plan to host what we call Lunch and Learns at the Development Center. There is a website, as I mentioned, that's live. And then as planners do engagement with neighborhood associations, corridor improvement authorities, we would be introducing this to all of the individuals there to basically spread the word. So with that, I will turn it over to Ryan Kilpatrick to talk about some of the emerging developer work. Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, before we do that,
Okay.
so how long, start to finish, did it take to get the plans that you've got now? Year, 6 months? This is happening in other cities. Obviously, I know South Bend maybe was the first big mover on this. But,
right.
you know, a handful of cities have done this, so this is great. But start concept to where we are now, how long?
Maybe 12 months for the entire program, but that was also doing that in partnership with the MADC, so the city was not in full control.
Got it. So I just want to flag then for future conversations, if nothing else. One thing that's, you got 1, 2, and 4 units. I'd love to develop 3s and 0s. So every one of those duplexes that you've got looks to my eyes like it could be there could be a studio up in the peak. So you could have a small unit on the potentially 3rd floor. And those won't, I mean, you need stairs to get up there. You're not going to teleport. So those models won't work. But I'm thinking like Providence, Rhode Island is a city of triplexes. And it may be that vertical triplexes work in places where you can't quite fit a quad. So your footprint really doesn't get any bigger, but you can get a 3rd unit. It also gets you some housing option flexibility. So like those duplexes were both 3 units if I was scanning correctly, but like, I just use a single example, like my niece, who's a teacher in Providence, she got her parents to help her buy a building. Well, she's living upstairs like a church mouse and making money on the first 2 floors. But what she needs is a 1-bedroom apartment. That's all she needs.
Yep.
So the smaller footprint created by the peak, love to see like even an add-on like, hey, you might consider doing this. And it could be approved. And frankly, we could even pre-approve those things. Someone might want to build one and then not finish that space and then, finish it later on. So I think that having some flexibility in the life cycle of the building, we could build that into our plans potentially. That'd be the next state. This is not me throwing shade on anything. This is awesome, but like the next place to think. The other would be ADUs, and I'm going to keep banging that drum till we get a lot more action on it. But the world is full of very, very similar looking garages. Yeah. A 2-stall garage is a 2-stall garage is a 2-stall garage. So I'd love to see, and now, ideally, we'd really get this idea on steroids if we could have some parameters, like, you don't have to build this ADU, but if you have a two-stall garage that's within these parameters, plus or minus, if it's between 24 and 26 inches, 20 feet, 6 feet wide, you can do this. Like, we're not going to get all that hung up on whether it's exactly the as-drawn model, but if we can get some, like, if you take something that's in this squishy parameter, you can make something in this squishy parameter. So I get new build, it's very easy to be like, you should do exactly this. All your ceilings should be exactly 8 feet tall, not 8'6", but like, that model wouldn't work for converting my garage because I got 10-foot ceilings on the first floor.
Yeah.
The last thought was, and I just want to generally flag this, is over time, I don't see a compelling reason to have foundations on any new build properties. We can do helical piers. They are so much cheaper. We can do simple frost walls without basements, but looking for ways to shave off costs for construction. So I'd love to, if we move to the point where we allow helical piers under buildings, to have some pre-drawn examples of that, because particularly in a rental unit, my basements are useless in my rental units, assuming they're not finished space. I bring my tenants down there and like, hey, you can throw your Christmas tree down here, but you probably never will. So if I'm building a rental unit, I don't need to build a basement.
So it's definitely expandable. To your point, we already have a quote to look at accessory dwelling units. So it's a matter of looking at what resources might be available to complete that. The zoning ordinance does not require foundations or basements.
Great.
So that's, I'd have to look to my building official to better understand what the building code implications are,
Right.
and whether that's an alternative within the city. But I think that there was a recent prefab home that was built that does not have a foundation that has the piers, but I'm a little out of my element there. But I think that there might be more flexibility than maybe most people realize.
Great. And if we have examples of it, then the beauty of this is you could visualize it, right? You're like, I can imagine building that. So if all of our plans include a basement, be good to have some plans that didn't include that and didn't even necessarily include a slab.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, and that could also be on what the owner wants. So, for instance, the one on Lafayette, Kristen, that we had. Am I not on? Okay, there's my stage voice. Remember the house that was built over on Lafayette? I think they ended up having to put a smaller brick foundation, not necessarily a full foundation on that one, but there's an example of one of those houses. But they had the choice too. They could either have a garage or they could have a basement. And they chose to have the garage. So the ability to be able to have those choices as a person that may be purchasing, right? So you might be, if builders, and that's something I put on there, if builders or developers are trying to build and they have these different ready-made plans to go, does this mean that they have to go with one of these plans? Or, you know what I'm saying? Because if I was going to build a house, I don't want it to look like that.
You don't want what? I'm sorry?
If I wanted to build a house or I wanted a house, I wouldn't want my front to look like that. So is there opportunities for you to be able to?
So there's probably some opportunities, but keep in mind, the goal of this is that they are permit ready. Okay, so they've been reviewed for zoning compliance and building code compliance. When you start to tinker with moving windows, you lose the benefit of having something that's permit ready. So it's not that you couldn't customize it. You're just going to lose the benefit of having that more expeditious review process, because that's going to open up a need to re-review for building code requirements and compliance.
Cool. Thanks.
That's a quick question.
Yeah.
Quick question. Once this gets released and things like that, and maybe this is part of the plan, but will we be tracking which of these people tend to gravitate towards? Like if there's a certain single family home that 80 or 90% of people pick, I think that'd be an interesting data point to look at to see like what about that model is works best with different lot sizes and things like that. So if that's not in the plan, I think that'd be interesting to see at some point.
Thank you for that. I hadn't thought about that. We have looked at, Mr. Kilpatrick and I, looking at a map and identifying all of the vacant lots in the city, and particularly also those that are under the control of the land bank, and trying to almost color code to say, this particular property appears like it could support the following pre-reviewed plan sets or permit-ready plan sets. But I didn't think about tracking which ones might be the most popular, but that's certainly something we could do.
Yeah, and my mindset with that too is, I know it takes time to get plans changed or pre-approved and things like that, but it could just be a good opportunity for continuous improvement to see like what shapes, what sizes, what models work best, and so just curious.
Mayor, just in addition to the collaboration with MEDC, I want to acknowledge the municipal league's work in developing this on a statewide basis. Because the thought is, if you can we have a housing shortage, not just in one city, not just in region, but statewide. And so if we have a common plan, we make it easier for both local as well as other developers to come and participate in the development process, taking out the cost of constructions and even assisting emerging developers.
Yeah, thank you, City Manager. I was trying to be brief, but you're absolutely right. The MML and MEDC, when they put together the neighborhood pattern workbook, I think that there are maybe 3 or 4 plan review sets or pre-reviewed plan sets, but they're general and not specific. So we really wanted to tailor it to the City of Grand Rapids criteria, but there are more available that I know, at least from a planning perspective, we have been widely supporting for other communities as well.
Great. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Glad to be here. I'm actually here in the stead of Eric Brown from the Urban League, and we tried to get Cassandra Oratz to come in. She had another commitment, so I'm your third choice. But happy to be here. I'm really excited about this program. I've had the pleasure of getting to support the Urban League on launching this based on a grant from the Fry Foundation. So this initial cohort just started 3 weeks ago. Today is session number 4. There are 12 individuals in the cohort. There will be another cohort in the fall that we're planning on. And Cassandra Oratz has been developing all of the curriculum. She works for Senair. She does a lot of financing for development, both LIHTC and affordable housing, so has a good experience there. She is also a small rental property owner herself in the city of Grand Rapids. She owns several small rental properties. So perfect fit for the program. Our team at Housing Next and Flywheel has been supporting logistically. We kind of step in every now and then. The key elements of this program are education, mentorship, financing, and development support. And so what we mean by that is the cohort is a selection of folks who have some related experience to development, but have never done development before or have done a version of development but need some fine tuning either in the pro forma side or the construction side or the permitting side. So the education is to try to create much more well-rounded folks who feel really confident investing in the city, doing more projects at a small scale level and hopefully eventually growing to become more mixed income developers and mixed use developers over time. The mentorship aspect of this is we want to pair every single one of the individuals in the cohort with an experienced developer who's done this work in the city before, whether it's at a small scale, but they've done a lot of projects, or it's at a larger scale. Part of this is about making sure they have somebody who can review their pro forma before they go get financing, or review their construction documents before they finalize and select a GC. We want to make sure they've always got a second set of eyes and a friendly ear to lean on. Part of it is also making sure that when they start the development process, anybody who's done development, whether it's a rehab or it's a new construction, there are surprises along the way. And the way you handle those surprises can make or break the project. And the big goal here is we want every single one of these cohort participants to have a successful project at the end of this session. So it's a 12-week program and then another year of ongoing mentorship to ensure that they can get all the way through a project. One of the things that's important about this group is we've got folks with varying levels of experience. So some of them will do their first project and it might be buying an existing single-family home and converting it to a 2-unit. Should be relatively simple, fairly easy to finance. The only big bogey out there is what happens when you start removing walls, right? Do we understand what's going on with the foundation before we get overly invested in the project? Other cohort participants may do one of the fourplexes that Kristen just shared. And we may try to connect them with one of the land bank lots. But the other big component of this is we want to make sure we're connecting individuals with financing, both from the lender side and the equity side. So our anticipation is a couple of the cohort participants may have their own equity to contribute, and it's enough to make the project whole. Other participants may need some support on the equity side. So we're working through connecting them with investors as well as connecting them with lenders who are friendly to this type of product to make sure that they can actually launch their project once they're finished with the educational programming. An important component of that is that we want each of these development participants to really get into the weeds on the financing. We're going to try not to solve problems with grant dollars. Instead, we're going to seek out patient equity investors who understand the social impact of these investments as well as the potential financial impact. These aren't going to be high return development projects. They're going to be pretty modest return projects, but they're going to do a lot of good for the community and they're going to do a lot of good for the individuals that are doing these for the first time. And our hope is that we also build relationships between equity investors and developers so that they can become partners over time. And those investors may want to do multiple deals. And then lastly, those mentors are going to walk alongside each of the development cohort participants to make sure that they can get their project all the way across the finish line, lease it up effectively, manage the pro forma, understand operating costs, all of the things, right? What we want to do is build a small army of local developers who are from local neighborhoods, who are able to add units 1, 2, 3, 4 at a time in a way that is reflective of the local neighborhoods that also generates wealth within the neighborhoods. So just a quick summary of how we're trying to align this work with other work happening at the city. We're already talking with economic development about how we make the parcels that are in the land bank available to the development cohort. They won't be exclusively available to the Equitable Development Initiative, but we do want to make sure that folks participating in this understand the process for applying and are competitive. Obviously, Kristen's pre-reviewed plan sets are going to be a great opportunity for these developers. We did already create the map that Kristen was alluding to, so we've color-coded all of the land bank properties by property size, so we can really clearly see which ones are eligible for a duplex, which ones are eligible for a fourplex, and so on. The Brownfield Revolving Loan Fund, we've had some conversations about using the Revolving Loan Fund to support pre-development activities. Where a pre-reviewed plan set doesn't work or where there might be contamination on site, we're going to want to be talking about how might we help the development cohort pursue financing or upfront dollars to cover site assessments, to cover phase 1 or phase 2 if necessary, as well as kind of those pre-design requirements. The Affordable Housing Fund is a potential source if we have development partners that are really set on doing income-restricted affordable housing. So the Affordable Housing Fund is particularly set up to serve households primarily earning 60% AMI or below, which is roughly households earning $45,000 a year or less. And then the Kent County Revolving Loan Fund is another source of funding that we've helped to establish. That would be low-interest debt that could help finance some of these deals, and we're already talking with the loan fund administrator there about that. And then lastly, you can see our schedule there on the right. These are the courses that each participant goes through on a week-to-week basis. We meet every Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. We do some site visits so they can get out into the field and see, what does a 100-year-old house look like? And when we tear all the studs down, what are the things you want to be looking for inside of that house? But we're also going to go out and look at some vacant properties and talk about how do we apply zoning and finance and all of those things to lots within the city. So with that, happy to take any questions if you have them.
Cool.
Ryan, how many people are in the cohort right now?
There's 12 in the current cohort.
And are they people that have already kind of been in that little development space already, or they're just fresh off the street?
Some have been around. So I name a couple of names. Landon Jones, Signe Jordan and her partner. We've got a couple of folks whose names are pretty well known in the community, have done some of these projects, and a couple of folks who are brand new, but they have some real estate experience or they have some banking experience, and so they're kind of primed. They just need that a little bit extra support.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could, just to put something in perspective, tying in from earlier this morning about home ownership versus rental. So the latest needs assessment updated number for Grand Rapids is
A total of 14,193
14,000, all
units.
right. And let's just say, by chance, if half, we know we have the land to do multifamily, high density, either condo or rental use, but for single family housing, I don't think we have the land to put 7,000 homes in our city.
We got 7,000 garages.
So,
Right.
so I think putting some perspective in the future on what home ownership looks like, it may not be housing. It should, I guess, there's a different. Housing ownership
Yep.
may not be the same as what we think about traditional home ownership.
That's right.
And how that might need to look different in our city.
That's right. And if I can put an even finer point on that, City Manager, I was running the numbers on one of the duplex plan sets that the Planning Department has put together. And my estimate is a duplex is probably going to cost around $360,000 all in to finance. And so at that price point, 2 units, one of which, if it rented at 80% AMI, it would rent for about $1,500 a month. If the other unit was occupied by the homeowner, their monthly payment would be about $900 a month, right? And so when we look at opportunities to buy a home in Grand Rapids today, the average price is around $250,000 right now. When you add in taxes and insurance, your monthly mortgage payment's going to be close to $2,100 a month for the average single-family home. But building a brand-new duplex would allow a homeowner to have passive income on one side or upstairs, and they could own the other unit for a monthly cost of about $900 a month. So homeownership absolutely could look very different, but it could also be a great opportunity for wealth creation for first-time homeowners.
Yep. So, thanks.
Yep.
That's great.
Thank you.
All right, now it's my turn. So now that you've heard about the tools for real estate entrepreneurs to leverage the cost savings with these pre-approved plans and the training opportunities to learn about the development process, I want to tie in some of our existing economic development tools that are either on the horizon as well as those we have available right now. So on the horizon, as has been an ongoing discussion, we have the opportunity with the land bank parcels to really be intentional about getting sites in the hands of individuals from those neighborhoods to really activate the properties within. Currently, we're working with a company called eProperties that we are going to be bringing to the March Land Bank Board. They will be essentially our online platform that are going to list all these properties online for our city land bank. And as of right now, we're hoping April 15th to have that up and running. While these sites have been available under the previous agreement with the state, we're really working to bring awareness to the land bank for these sites that are available and really working to establish the best way to dispose of those. As has been a part of this discussion, creating that disposition policy and really ensuring that it does what we're hoping it will. And so we're hoping that that can be paired up with many of these pre-approved plans that Director Turkelson has presented. Additionally, through the Brownfield Redevelopment Revolving Fund, Economic Development has emerging developer grants. This is a one-time application available to new and emerging developers for pre-development expenses necessary to obtain site plan approval. Those dollars can be used for really many of these expenses, including site planning, environmental assessment, survey, architectural services, as well as engineering, whether that's geotechnical, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, civil engineering. As well as through the Brownfield Redevelopment Revolving Fund, there are the environmental site assessment grants as well. These really help businesses and developers offset those costs associated with the environmental related assessments when acquiring these properties, such as the phase 1 and 2 environmental assessments, the baseline environmental assessment, hazardous material survey, due care planning, everything around that. The emerging developer and ESA grants coupled with these pre-approved plans and the potential pairing to land bank sites really allows more opportunity for additional housing, as we all know is a ongoing need here in the city. So I believe that's everything right now. Any questions?
Yeah, actually, one thing I'd love to see, we do a very good job when we give tax breaks to employers. We scale out the property tax break and we compare it to the income tax benefit. I would love to see a comparison of the revenue stream for the city from income tax from a duplex versus a single-family home. So if we know that over the life cycle of a duplex, we're going to get, I don't know, $50,000 in additional income tax revenue, and that person would otherwise hypothetically live in Ada, we're getting a revenue stream when we build a multi-unit, and that might be worth having that information in front of, say, the land bank when they're crafting policy. I would love to see we only get to build something once, assuming that we build it fairly well. So you build a single-family house, you're not going to come tear it down in 2 years and say, oh, I changed my mind, let's make it a duplex. So the empty land is a really unique, it's a sort of a once-in-a-century opportunity, probably. And so I'd love to see some of the benefits of having multifamily things, not just for the owners, but also for the community, be reflected in some of that analysis. So, and I don't have that off the top of my head. The other thing I'd love to see is a conversation. I should know this, and I'd love it if someone out there can find out, like, what's our current, like, how many duplexes do we have in town right now? It's a non-zero number. How many single-family homes? Like, I'm not worried about apartment buildings, but like our ratio of single-family homes to duplexes or tries in town, I bet we've got like 0 tries, if I had to guess. I would guess we have about 5% duplexes maybe compared to single-family homes. Like, we're a very, very single-family home dominated city right now. So if we're going to be, I think we just have to be clear what a unique opportunity an empty piece of land is, and not squander that opportunity by simply building. In other words, it's great to have first-time investors and all that, but I'm a little worried that a first-time developer might think, well, those of us who study in this space know one of the problems in development in general is developers tend to build things that are too big, but also everybody knows that it's not that hard to sell a single-family house. So I'm worried that those biases will get us where we don't want to be as a community. If we want as a community to be more renter-friendly, and if we want to be more density-friendly and like duplexes and tris and quads tick so many good public value boxes, right? Among them, the thing Ryan just pointed out, which is like, it's tough to be a jerk of a tenant if your landlord is your next door neighbor. So like, building renters in as good members of the community, well, that's really nice if you're living next door to one. And frankly, landlords who live next door to their tenants often wind up in sort of this mentoring relationship with them too. So like, I really think of those as community building bricks. Like, maybe you don't know other people in single families houses on your block, but if you live in a duplex, you know the person living on the other side of that wall. You're just going to know them. And so again, in a society where I'm constantly thinking about how do we build stronger, more interwoven community, these kinds of things line with not just the values of like, hey, let's get people investments that make sense, all of which is great, but we also want to be thinking about building community. We also want to be thinking about the knock-on values that multi-units present. Dale, you want to come on up? Mr. Robbins. Moving on to an update on the Public Museum, which still has a big thing, which turns out to not be a blue whale. It's a fin whale. I know this because I read the sign. I also know that it's real, though. I was just reading about, I think it's Boston's got a fake one out of fiberglass. This is real.
This is real. Yes, thank you. Mayor, City Manager, City Commissioners, my name is Dale Robertson. I'm president of Grand Rapids Public Museum, and really appreciate being able to be here today and being allowed to have some time on the agenda. We are a city-owned asset with not just a city constituency, but a county-wide constituency and a regional role. We've gone through a organizational or corporate structure, if you will, change when we separated as a department from the city in 2006, and then actually had made our way through to financial stability really through the passage of a county-wide millage. In 2016, it's a 10-year millage, so will be coming up for renewal in 2026, ideally. And through that time, we have actually embraced and grown our civic responsibility, not only in terms of the present day, but our full partners in the plans that the city has for the future, as well as the county has also for the future and development and growth, not of just the city, the county, but the entire region. And so what I appreciate being able to do today is maybe share a little background, history, context of some things about the museum as we do look towards a millage renewal, and also our expansion, which is that partnership with the future aspirations and goals for our entire region. So I'm not going to tick through all these, I'll just do some highlights, but we are the oldest and second largest museum in the state of Michigan, and we have the broadest and most diverse collection. A thing that I really like to brag about too, though, and I think it speaks to the spirit of West Michigan, is that 98% of the 250,000 artifacts and specimens were donated by the people of West Michigan over 171 years. So they did it for a noble purpose, which is sharing out with the public inspiration and education. So history, science, and culture, city funding ceased in 2008. We're run by this nonprofit entity. We have a 99-year lease with an option to renew it for 50 that was signed in 2006. We're multi-site. The city to this day, though, continues to hold title to all the land, all the buildings, and all the assets. So that means that in everything that makes up the public museum is on the city's balance sheet. It is not on my balance sheet. So I want to linger a little here if I can. This is a financial snapshot, and it really does relate directly to what the millage has helped us do. We have a $12 million annual budget this fiscal year. The millage is a 50-50 split with the John Ball Zoo, but that also means that we can provide community benefits, which means we're open 52 weeks out of the year. We're only closed 6 days, so Meyer and Bronner's and Frankenmuth has us beat, but we're pretty good with everybody else, right? So any Kent County resident up to the age of 17 gets in free. Parking is free for Kent County residents. We also changed our business model just a couple years ago. It's because we used to have separate surcharges to get into the traveling exhibits, and we were finding that people just were being priced out of those. So because of this support we're able to get, we have no additional surcharge for any traveling exhibits, and I will tell you they are wildly expensive. Right, but we want to make sure we have that access available. We also then, I argue, so I'm a lawyer, I'm going to argue, I'm going to submit that we also, not only are we taking on responsibility, we make net contributions back to the city, and that we have the responsibility for carrying all of the collections, 90% of which are housed at the archives. But we also pay fees back into the city, so we are a net contributor. So I want just to quickly go through the history because I know time is moving on here. So we originally were affiliated with the Grand Rapids Public Museum.
Are we supposed to compare the ones on the left and the one on the right and see what?
Actually, that's a great question. This is a forerunner of the Viewmaster. And this is a photo of our original collections being stored in what it's now Central Innovation High School. So it was original connection with Grand Rapids Public Schools. As we were beginning to grow and make our way, this is one of my favorite quotes from Frank Demond, who was one of my predecessors, about the vision for the museum as being as accessible as a dime store and friendly as a next door neighbor. Those are still enduring principles. This is where, and this is another one, there's Frank Demond, right there in the center. He used to give free educational lectures to the neighborhood kids, and this is actually not the Howlett Mansion, it's an annex that across the street where the Presbyterian Church is now. But this is my Exhibit A of when we really embraced becoming an educational institution. And then we move then to the old museum building, unique design in the nation that it was street entry, street level, to fully embrace that accessible. And here's the thing, this is what I've circled here. This is on the dedication plaque, free dissemination to the knowledge of knowledge to all. And that is really the core principles of which we operate still to this day. What I tell people frequently is we're just running Frank Demond's playbook in the 21st century. Those are the enduring principles. So it does lead right into our strategic plan. So you see knowledge for all is called out, but also under that 99-year lease with option to renew for 50, we have obligations for financial stability as well as collection stewardship to make sure that we're taking care of those city assets. So it is linked and connected to everything that we do. As a community asset, again, it's just a reminder on here that the city charter does require that there be a public museum, and we are it. We are a destination, but frankly, as you'll see in just a second here, that we really are an entity that serves more of that placemaking, why you want to live here, why you want to work here, why you want to stay here, of who we really serve. So we have connections into all of the riverfront plans, and we run public programs, K through 12 programs, but we do serve as that true community asset. So this is just a little bit of the school. So we had field trips of 45,000 students that came through this year. With the expansion I'll talk about again, we're going to be able to get up to 70,000. Am I confident that we'll be able to get there? Yes, because we are turning school groups away because we simply don't have the space. And again, that millage was key in that because they all get in free. Of the Kent County residents, 33,000 of those 45,000 residents that come to use our museum are from Kent County. And our grade, our sweet spot is 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, although we go through high school and colleges too. Community partners, we don't do anything without community partnering. That's just a quick snapshot. And we engage then throughout the community. Our strategic plan I've mentioned, we're highlighted and called out in the GR Forward City Master Plan for the Education and Interpretation Center for Everything River, connected with Whitewater. And we put this slide in here of these are museum school students that actually helped us in a lot of our community visioning programs. So we move in then to what's the future. The future is this expansion. So we are completely redoing the riverfront, new ways to get into the museum and flow to be able to handle more visitors, more students. We have the archives and core exhibits. I'm going to tick through those quickly just to make sure that you have the picture. So this is what it'll look like from the south end. Of course, because we're an educational institution, we just can't have a retaining wall. We have there down by the bottom a geologic layer retaining wall. We have a unique design from anywhere, any permanent installation, anywhere that I know of, which is for an outdoor classroom, but there's not just one space. If you're in a wheelchair, it's multiple spaces where everyone has agency to pick where they want to gather and engage. And again, it's through partnerships that we came up with that design. This shows how we're separating the carousel from the building, so we maintain that proper 7.5-mile loop through downtown as a partner in that, and allows the carousel to become an asset that can be open when the museum is closed. Indoor-outdoor cafe on the north side, which is a partnership with the GRCC Culinary Center. And that was just a new outside entry, new inside entry into the new school gathering space. This is how the north side will a very park-like setting, which we hope will be an additional gathering space. And of course, we're putting on an elevator on the south end, which we need for that mobility throughout the museum. And also, there's plans for a south tower in the future that will also be able to serve. And it's a vital asset that we also hope to earn support for that before the construction people move on from that side and costs will go up. Quickly, core exhibits and museum millage dollars allow investments in maintaining our exhibits, and so we are redoing right now the Anishinaabe exhibit. It's under construction now. Refresh to streets, where we'll be able to add in J.C. Craig's Barbershop, African-American owned and the first to use electricity in the city, and Nora Carr, who was a woman-owned business that was doing cosmetics. And then, of course, we've added to the plans now. We've fully raised the money, our own. We've raised all the money to create a public access space in the archives. We'll allow public to come in and have full access to the collections. That's something else that we're doing that I'm not aware of any museum anywhere, is the routine sharing and using of collections on a regular basis. So one of my favorite stories, when a third grader drops a mastodon tooth and cracks it open, we know what the inside of a mastodon tooth looks like. We got 10 more, but it's worth it because that visceral experience is the one that creates the stronger hooks for future information to land on. Mayor.
The expansion area there, is there going to be bathroom facilities in that park?
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Oh, yeah. And the other thing, too, let me, I'm cognizant of the time, but, let me just brag on the education, or the engineering department here. The engineering department is managing the entire project, not only the Van Andel Museum Center, but here at the archives. And Kristen Fouth is fearless, and they are superb. So yes, this is all planned out. There's restroom facilities. It's fully accessible. In fact, at the Van Andel Museum Center with the ramping, we've gone beyond ADA. Right, so it's an important thing, but the city engineering department is really lead and making sure that we're hitting all of that. We do have a whole digital infrastructure, digital literacy, not consuming, but creating content, and this is very similar to when we used to take artifacts out to schools. We still do. But this is a way to share the entire collections online, but also the difference here is that the work can be continued at home because this platform that we've created, open source, works even on Chromebooks, works on any device, and essentially powered with the museum's database. And we're the first in the nation to have PRIVO approval, which means it is safe for students to use with parent and guardian approval. Right, so this is just another way of explaining all of that. Finally, we'll get to the end with this $50 million expansion. So again, the millage is absolutely key to be able to make sure that we are going forward in the future. We've raised $36 million on our own. It's cash funded. There's no financing. We've asked for no bonds, no debt, nothing. Riverfront, say, will be open in the fall of this year. Anishinaabe is under construction now. We hope, and working with the city engineer, but you'll have to come back through process here. The CARC will be completed in 2026. We'd really hope to get support and help for the elevator so that can go, and then you can see the rest of the plans. And once again, the millage is absolutely critical to be renewed at the same 50-50 split, ideally for 10 years also, because that provides that stability and the security of which we can continue to go forward and grow and serve more residents than we're able to now as an educational, inspirational resource.
Cool. I have a couple questions. If we could back up to the bit by the old museum school, the new addition there. What was the timeline for that being completed?
So that would be, we hope to be able to have that completed by, complete by the fall of 2026. So that's what we call CARC.
CARC? Okay,
Yes,
got it.
Community Archives and Research.
Can I ask you some questions about that then?
Yes.
First of all, if I want to go to the public museum, I got to pay entrance. Do I have to pay admission to get into that space?
Right now, all you do, if you want to see something of the artifacts, you just call up and you make an appointment.
Okay.
Now, we're going to have to figure out some ways for school groups and others to come in and figure out some sort of revenue sharing, maybe, but, those are all to be worked through, given what we're able to raise money for and millage support.
What's the size of the footprint of that CARC? 3,000 square feet?
I think you're pretty close. I have my colleagues Karen Wilbert and Stephanie Ogren here.
6,000 additional.
6,000.
Two levels.
Right, 2 levels, so
Yep.
3,000 square feet per level. What, is that going to be, obviously, it's going to be accessible from the museum school. Is it going to be, it's going to be separately staffed from the archive space? Like, when you walk in there, there's going to be a museum staff person there?
Yes, so we have begun making our collections open to the public, which means that in addition to bringing out artifacts and specimens, we allow people to come in to that space. And it's made for storage, it's not made for people. So the idea is that this is a place where you can have initial gathering, you can go through the archives. Say you're the furniture design class at Kendall and you've got an interest in a couple of pieces, we'll be able to pull those out. You have a separate meeting space to do that. Or the Quilters Club. We got 200 quilts. They want to come in. They want to look at the stitches. We'll be able to facilitate them in a ways that we cannot do now. In addition, the class space and the lab space in there will also be available for community use also at other hours. So this is really opening up the collections in a way that I'm not aware of anybody doing it, any museum doing it any way like we're doing it anywhere in the nation.
So thanks. One of the it's an interesting question, and we don't have to talk about it too much more now in interest of time. But over my lifetime, libraries were places you went to pull a book and be quiet, and they've become Barnes and Nobles, which is a much better model, and not scared of letting people have cups of coffee in them, don't have to be quiet the whole time. So I think this is great. One of the things that I keep thinking about in our community, though, is if you and I want to meet, we can go meet at a Starbucks, but there's a $12 throwdown for doing that. I'm always looking for ways we can stretch community assets that don't have dollar figures associated with them, where people can meet, hang out, build community. So I'm thinking fire stations are potential assets for that. Right now, our libraries do a brilliant job of walking that tightrope, of making themselves really feel accessible and welcoming without getting overwhelmed by it. But I'd love to have knock-on conversations about how this space can be activated as a community asset and not simply a consume the museum, because I think that's going to make a museum feel more welcoming, right? Like, it's tough to get around the fact that at your mothership, I've got to throw down money to get in unless I'm under 17, but so I'm never going to go there and meet somebody for 20 minutes. But this is the kind of space that I think might get activated that way.
So could I respond to that?
Of course.
I will tell you, one of the because there's many inspirations, as you know, for any one thing. One of the inspirations for doing this, and this is true because I've actually talked to somebody that actually was part of this. There was a time when members of the community had keys to get into the old museum building. So the Furnitures Club would come in, unlock, have their meeting, leave, and some other folks, similar thing. So I did find somebody who said, yeah, that's true. I had one of the keys. All right, and actually it's the guy who takes care of our vehicles. But so part of the inspiration is, this is a community asset, and I want the community. Now, I'm not going to give keys away, all right, but to your point, Mayor, it is an inspiration was be able to have a community space for that kind of access, to have those meetings, to have those interactions, and to use the artifacts and the specimens. So the lawyer in me says, right, if you have 98% donated by the over history, there's an implied promise that we have to make good that the community has access to use of those artifacts, and that includes the buildings. So yes, it was an inspiration that led to this.
Right on. So thanks for the presentation. It's all great. Looks very exciting.
Right. Thank you.
Commissioner Knight.
Took all the time. Yes, Dale, thank you for coming in your presentation. I just have one question, and I'm just wondering if there's any cross-pollination with the Grand Rapids African American Museum and Archives.
Yes, there is, and it's been a long and good history. George Byard has served on our we have a community-based collections committee. This is also unique, I think, in the nation too, that things that come into our collections goes to our curators, but then it goes through a community-based committee, and then it goes up to the board of directors. George has been on that for a long time. We were supporters and donators of assets when he first started, and still have those kind of collaborations with him, and work to this day on exhibits and programs, and so it's a good partnership. Now, I worry about if I should say this or not, but I have a bias of where I hope that they locate, and boy, if it could somehow be right across the street from this space that we're looking at right now, wouldn't that be fantastic? I guess I'll just leave it at that.
I can have a conversation. I think it's really important, especially when we think about, like, this is really grade A for Mission, but, even as I scroll through and look at some of the pictures, some of the pictures look very homogeneous. And I know that you're getting, all of these students in there, and a lot of that's happening is because of the schools, right? The schools participating, being a partner, bringing those kids in there. But what about when the school doesn't bring them? How do we continue to find ways to innovate, to bring diverse cultures and stuff into the space, and them feeling like this is a space for them? So that's why I brought that piece up.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Okay, moving on to Third Ward Equity Fund update.
In the interest of time, there was a full report in the packet. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but we do intend to periodically report out to this team on progress of each of the project areas.
Great. And that was spending for last year, correct? That's what the emphasis was on?
It's the fiscal year 2025 budgeted amount, correct?
Right. Okay. Thanks. We can move right along then. Right away, engagement enhancements update.
Similarly, this is just a verbal update, and we've said it a couple of times today. There will be a commission night out. Andrea has something to hand out here that she's signaling to me. Oh. This is yours. Oh, no. It's fine. Sorry. Everybody back in looking behind the curtain in Wizard of Oz land. So there is going to be a lot more focus at Commission Night Out about this, but I just wanted to let this team know that there is continued work that you will see the details of, really focused on the construction period for our vital streets type projects, those projects that are disruptive for a long time, lead to permanent sort of parking loss, or during construction, a whole street is sort of torn up and you wonder, can I even go down here? What about the businesses? So that's what we're really focused on for this construction period. The team that has generated the ideas that will be featured at Commission Night Out will continue to work on the whole soup to nuts engagement process. So we do community engagement from Kristen Turkelson was revealing this in her conversation with the commission at the Committee of the Whole, but from area-specific plan, kind of vision for revitalizing a corridor, we take community engagement from there into our capital project planning. And so that can be a multi-year process. And our improvement team around engagement will continue to work on that, and we will be, again, updating this team over time on each phase of that sort of community engagement and what kind of enhancements we bring to bear ultimately for the benefit of the community and the commission and our projects. But this construction season, we're really just focusing on this construction season. So some of the tools we will be piloting and see how they work to fold back into that longer term work. But it's always a balancing act of staff capacity to do process improvement, try to figure out some of those things, are they workable, and then feed it back into the day-to-day work. So just wanted this team to be aware that what you see at Commission Night Out is a piece of what we're working on, and there will be continued updates and continued improvements over time. And just one final plug to those who may be watching to attend Commission Night Out to see more.
One of my long-term aspirational plans is to do what other cities do, which is when we have a construction process or project, the last thing you lose is sidewalk access, not the first thing. That's a big deal for people with disabilities, for sure. But in other cities, construction projects are simply required, if you need to lose a parking lane to build a new temporary sidewalk around, you do that. You don't just get to a construction project and find out, oh, you're out of luck. You're supposed to be on the other side of the street now. I know as a pedestrian, I routinely ignore that, and that just puts me out in traffic. So I'd love to see us move to what other cities do on that. Anyway, moving on, Development Center report.
So for the sake of time, I'm just going to give a brief update. I'm Daryl Singleton with the Development Center. So in the first ward, 648 Bridge, we have a 5-story multifamily development with the 648 Bridge LLC in John Ball Park. It's a 148-unit development. Also at 520 Lake Michigan Drive, there's a pedestrian bridge. This will serve as an overhead walkway spanning the intersection of Lake Michigan Drive and Winter. Along with that, we have another development that's under construction at the Kent County Airport for the terminal enhancement project. And as far as just to reiterate real quick about our engagement efforts, continued involvement with the Neighborhood Association committee meetings and individual groups, along with going to the corridor improvement meetings on a weekly basis, and also to give a date for our first lunch and learn that will take place on Tuesday, April 22nd. That will be for the emerging leaders, which will involve just a better understanding for new developers and those who want to get a better understanding of the permitting process. So, any questions?
Nope.
All right. There we go.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Right. I think that brings us to the end of our agenda with 14 minutes to spare. Thanks, everyone.